Right. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. We are here today with another CxO Talk with different industry leads and experts and professionals from the business world and different enterprises. My guest for today is Mr. Jalal Curmally. So, welcome, Jalal Saab. Thank you very much for joining us today. Great to have you here.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Okay. Jalal Saab, I'll just give a little bit of introduction for our viewers. So Jalal Saab is the HR head at EFU Life Insurance. He has a very long and a very diverse experience in the field of HR. He's been a senior manager at different organizations and is now heading the EFU HR department. And as I said, has a very diverse range of organizational development and HR human resource development experiences. We'll talk a little bit more about whatever he's done. And I think it'll be better if coming from him to talk about his journey as a professional within the human resource management field and how he's been able to develop the most important resource that any organization has, that is the human resource. So how do we actually look at those? So Jalal Saab, I'll start off with you giving us a little bit of a synopsis of your career journey. So what led you here?
I graduated, I'm an IBA graduated with a master's in marketing. There was no MBA in HR at the time, and at the time of my graduation, I had no intention of doing marketing, and I didn't know that a career in HR was in my future. It's been the accident of my career. I mean, I've had a job since I was 16 years old. So I've been in various small jobs, and I think the only time that I haven't really been working was about the 2.5 years that I took to prep for the IBA entrance exam and then to do my MBA. It was a direct MBA from IBA. I was fortunate that I started off my career with Tracker when Tracker was just getting started in Pakistan, and specifically within the vehicle security and fleet management segment. And I spent about a good 2.5 years there. During my time in IBA, I developed a taste for theater and made a lot of friends there. And some of those friends at that time started a production house. If you recall, that's roughly around about the time when the Musharraf government had come in. And there was a big media boom in television in Pakistan. So television was just getting started. And the entire bouquet of channels that we see now was just starting to bloom at the time. So that was a very exciting time to get into media and production. And I was there for about a good 2 years. And that didn't work out very well for me. So I got into management consulting, and I was very fortunate that I did. I took a pay cut and I joined Sadat Haider Murshid Associates. And I found a home there. For 12 years, I was there. And there, I strongly recommend consulting. For those of you who don't have your careers mapped out, get into consulting. The amount of industry exposure and the various functions and areas of business that you will be exposed to is unparalleled. There's nothing to teach you like consulting can teach you. And round about that time is when I started getting into the principles of the functions and the practice of HR. I started off in Sadat Haider as a business and management consultant, a strategy consultant, which is what I did for a considerable amount of time. But then I started and I requested, and I started getting more and more exposure to HR consulting assignments. And I developed a liking for it, a taste for it. I developed a certain level of expertise and proficiency at it. And round about 2015 is when I was given the opportunity to head an HR function. Now, usually what happens in people's careers is that they spend a lot of time in industry, in various companies, and they develop a certain skill set and expertise, and then they go into consulting. I went ulta. So consulting is a very different mindset, and it's a very different approach to doing HR, whereas in the actual practice of it in an organization is an entirely different beast. And this was, I felt, the next logical and step for me, and I was very excited to do it. I was given a very challenging and a very broad mandate, but a very challenging assignment from my CEO. And I took the opportunity, and here I am.
Okay, wonderful. I think it's been a very interesting journey, and it's got a very varied sort of take with starting with the marketing and then the media side of things as well. So I think you've delved into different areas, and I think it's important for us to have different experiences because that's where the learning curve is, and you
Nothing
get
like
to
it.
interact
Yeah.
with different dynamics, different situations.
Yeah. And this is something young people especially ask, what should I do in my various interactions with students or with young professionals? I'm called upon to provide career counseling advice. And I think the first advice I give them is, look, it's okay to not know what you want to do in your job or in your career. It's okay. You don't have to have your life sorted out at 19. You don't have to have your life sorted out at 24, which is about the average age, 23, 22 to 24 when you get your first job. It's all right. You do need to have it sorted out generally by the time you hit your 30s. So you have that about a decade or so to experiment. And I speak from personal experience.
Yes, that discovery is important. That self-discovery, that understanding where you fit in best is important, I think,
And experiment.
rather than having a
If I reflect on my career, there is one through line, which is I've always tried to follow my nose. I'm curious and I like interesting problems. So if I could make my life interesting, what I thought was interesting, then that's what I tried to do. And it's certainly made my life difficult, but it's also made
okay.
my career very fulfilling and very interesting. So I'm grateful to God for that.
Okay. So HR people are generally very focused and all about development and looking after the well-being of others. Is that something that it kind of cascades into your personal life as well? Is that how you are as a person amongst your family and friends as well?
Wow, you should ask them. Um, I do care. It is. Do I care? I mean, who doesn't care about their family and friends? Of course, we care. Uh, I don't know what you.
Right.
This is an embarrassing question. I mean, I don't know how you would want me to respond to that. Am I loving? Yeah. Yeah. Um, but let me look at the first part of your question, which is HR people generally tend to care about the training and the development and the careers of people. Yes, we do care. Sometimes I think we care a little bit too much. You see, good
I
HR
agree.
isn't a, good HR exists at the intersection of two things: the needs of the employee and the needs of the entity. Here at this intersection is the arena in which good HR operates. Swing too much in one direction, and I think that's where HR starts running into problems. So, yes, the needs of the entity and the needs of the employee need to exist coevally and in balance. If there has to be a
Right.
deciding factor, then yeah, it's the needs of the entity. Full stop. We work for profit-seeking entities, and HR needs to align with business. Period, comma, full stop. So if you do end up figuring out one way or the other which way you go, then you go in the way of the business. But generally speaking, when you can align an employee's personal needs and their needs for career pathing, career development, learning and development, in a way that fits in best with what the entity itself is trying to achieve, that is one of the most fulfilling things that you can do as an HR professional. And I think it's that golden mean. I don't think anybody's got it completely right, But and I don't think anybody will, because there will always be a new lesson to learn and a new challenge to overcome. But the pursuit of it, I think, is one of the most rewarding things that you can do in HR, especially when you add value to another person.
Right.
I
Okay.
find that personally very
Absolutely
rewarding.
correct. I think striking that balance is the most important thing for any HR department or any HR person as well. I think having the balance that you've talked about, that alignment with the organizational and the employee well-being both.
Mhm.
So absolutely on point. But HR seems to used to be a very sort of behind the scenes kind of department. If we go back a couple of decades, I think. I've
Yeah.
had a short stint some HR training of my own as well, briefly. But HR used to be not they weren't the superheroes of an organization as
In
I think they
Pakistan.
are now going to be. A lot of learning and development is where they come in. So I think it's a key department that has now been given that spotlight.
HR came, you're absolutely right. HR came to Pakistan a little late. And I speaking again about myself, I was very fortunate to be in consulting at the time and doing HR consulting at a time when HR in Pakistan was actually starting to bloom. There was a time when centers of excellence in HR were consolidated almost entirely in MNCs, basically because they had that international exposure, they had that international expertise to come in. I mean, HR as a subject in IBA has been taught since my father was in IBA. My father was also, God rest his soul, an IBA graduate. And even he studied human resources. He didn't study personnel, he studied human resources. And we're going way back. So,
Right.
but this was
Yeah.
at about the time say about the 90s, the early 2000s, and that's about the time when HR sort of spilled out of MNCs into large-scale local enterprises. So all of a sudden, you started seeing very, very reputed names in Pakistan, respected brand names, respected companies, suddenly develop very active and very powerful HR functions. And it's an ongoing process. You're seeing a lot more of that now. I think one of the areas where HR still struggles is, to quote unquote, to find a seat at the table. We That I don't think is a function so much of companies saying, "Yeah, just go recruit me 100 people and maintain their files and don't talk to me about the business." I think it's more about HR departments now sort of having entrenched themselves as necessary, demonstrating the value that they can generate. So if you as an HR function are finding yourself excluded from a seat at the table, then you need to ask yourself, what real strategic value are you giving to the business apart from, yaar, ye banda chhod ke chala gaya hai, 10 bande le aao and offer half the salary?
Yeah.
which we get.
Yes.
So I think that's the next area where of operations where HR in Pakistan, from my very albeit limited window, from what I see, is that HR departments really need to focus on the value they create, not just in terms of the activities that they roll out, but the value that they provide to the employees and to the entity. And I
Absolutely
think that's the
right.
next big area.
You talked about the employee hiring and the organization's focus on just building up the employee strength and not actually looking at the bigger picture. Yes, and I think we still have a long way to go in looking at the HR in the rest of the world is synonymous with organizational development. We talk about HR and OD uh, uh, along with each other. So that's kind of a partner department. So it's about looking at what you can do to make sure the resources that you have, they have that opportunity to develop individually, and automatically your organization grows bigger as well. Not in terms of numbers or in terms of the competencies and the capacities. So I think that's where HR has a very, very important role to play.
Actually, I'm sorry.
You
I'm
talked
just
about employee. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no. I just wanted to add on to what you said, especially at the leadership level. I think that that is the ultimate value that you add. HR playing its proper HR role at the leadership level. But yes, carry on.
Okay, so I was just going to come and touch upon the retention topic, because I think generally a lot of people who are in HR and generally other departments as well. So, how do we tackle employee retention, especially from Pakistan's perspective? What have you learned? Any words of wisdom for other organizations? Employee turnover is something I think that is a collective problem. So, how do you retain employees?
Yes, it is an issue. But my thinking on this, you see, you've asked me this question at an interesting time. If you'd asked me this question a year ago, I would have had a similar response to just about every other HR head that you would talk to and say, no, retention is important. We are dealing with a generation of workers that is highly mobile, especially at the early stages of their career. Oh, forget the millennials, Gen Z is where it's at right now. We need to focus on retention programs, and everybody's so impatient and they want the best money and the best opportunities and the best careers immediately, and no one's willing to wait and complain, etc., etc., etc. And I was in that camp too. But now, look, and I think other HR heads will agree with me on this, the sort of turnover that we had last year, that we saw in our companies, where you had a very mobile young workforce, you don't have it this year. You don't have it this year right now because, let's face it, Pakistani economy sucks. There's not that many opportunities out there. Only the good or the very best will be mobile. So that's a different sort of retention challenge. Well, how do you retain top talent? So even the retention problem that you're referring to has actually evolved from 2022 to 2023, at least in Pakistan. And this thing, by the way, that you're talking about, a highly mobile young workforce, it's not Pakistan specific. It's a generational issue. It's global. But is it an issue really? That's where my thinking is now. I think that rather than saying, oh no, we need to do things to retain people, and the typical, like, okay, what's the HR toolkit for retaining people? Experience, money, career pathing, reward, which then comes down to money. That's it. That's your toolkit. And everyone's trying to have the bigger, better toolkit, the shinier. It's like a Swiss Army knife. So you want to have the best knife, and you want to have, it's got to be gold plated. So you got to have the best experience and the best offices. And for sure, these are utterly essential, especially from an employee experience perspective. And I'm not saying that they don't have a retention impact. They absolutely do have a retention impact in the short term, which means that your budget, or that element of your HR budget that you devote to these specific programs, will inflate year on year with diminishing marginal returns. And what are you going to do? Oh, these young people. Rather, I think instead of going down that, because it's a loser's game, it's just going to become more and more expensive to the organization. Remember, HR is best when you're intersecting the needs of the employee with the needs of the company. So I think rather than just focus on retention, my advice would be play to the strengths of your culture. Yes, do absolutely have a rewards and recognition program. Absolutely pay well. Absolutely work hard to give employees not just excellent career opportunities, personal and skill development opportunities. Reward them, recognize them utterly, but do it because it is an integral part of your culture and philosophy and the way you run your organization. And I think if you build a culture that emphasizes these elements, rather than saying, oh shit, I need to run a retention program because all my top talent is leaving. You can't stop. They are going to go. But if you provide a culture in an organization that demonstrates to your top talent that they are recognized, respected, and that you walk the talk. You're not throwing out toffees to children. You're treating adults like adults, and you're treating them as professionals. And you demonstrate that the organization takes these things seriously, top to bottom, and they're an integral part of your culture, your good people will stay. And I think that is an aspect, an element of retention that has recently entered my thinking. Does that mean that we don't focus on retention? Oh, yeah, we absolutely do. But we do it in the context of our culture. EFU Life has an exceptionally strong culture. It's, in my view, and I am the head of HR, I recognize that. It's my job to say nice things about the culture of my organization. But EFU Life has an exceptionally strong culture. We emphasize things like recognition, dignity, respect, opportunity, and growth. And we celebrate successes, big or small, whoever they are. And we top to bottom, and we take that importantly. And I think, and these aren't, I'm not saying anything record breaking or wildly innovative here. These are the fundamentals of the employee experience in an organization. So if you can emphasize the culture, I don't think you will have a problem, or that much of a problem, with retention. And I think I've lost it.
Sorry, I think we had a little bit of a break in the connection, so we're back now.
No, welcome back. Yeah, I hope you got the last part, or at least the viewers did. And just to conclude, so yeah, that's where my thinking on retention currently is. The turnover percentages are going to be high. That young people are mobile. They are looking for certain things. I think rather than focusing on how do I retain the most young people in my company, my advice is simply play to the strengths of your culture. And there, I think the most important role to play isn't HRs. It's the CEOs. Because culture, no, the CEOs. Culture is like rain. It flows from top to bottom. The CEO is the top man in the company. HR is a support function. We exist to support. So
no, I completely agree with that. That's my personal opinion as well. Culture is always top down. Culture cascades from what you said at the top, and it has to.
If your CEO is sending the right message, the CEO is walking the talk, if the CEO is focused on the culture of his organization, I think if HR can then build on that and demonstrate it to the employees, you won't have a retention problem. Sure, your numbers would be high and your talent acquisition team will be very busy. But talent, the people that really matter in your company, I don't think you'll see much turnover there.
True. No, I think I would endorse and second what you've said. It's about not firefighting the employee turnover crisis. It's about strengthening the culture first, so that you actually don't need to firefight employees leaving you. So yeah, so it's a consistent and sustainable processes and sustainability of the cultural dynamics, rather than looking at these people are leaving, why they're leaving, and then.
I, as a consultant, I would be all about the latest theory, and I would be all about, this is what the thought leadership is, and then because I was expected to do that, these are the latest strategies and all of that. And then when I started running an HR department, I was just like, no, those are nice, certainly good to have, excellent for innovation. It's always good to learn something new, implement it, experiment with it. But everything runs on the fundamentals. Everything runs on the fundamentals. And it was a little late in my career to come to that revelation, but I really took this lesson to heart. So, and what I just said, my long diatribe right now, it's fundamental. I read it in my textbook at IBA, but I really see the wisdom of it now. And I think if we just play to fundamentals, you're in good shape.
Yeah, true. Yeah. you've got the right foundation, everything just falls into place automatically. Yeah. So that's
And
correct.
then you can build on that.
Okay,
Your
I'm going to try
foundation.
and
Yeah. Sorry. I keep over talking you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm going to try and veer off into a different direction. What about the that's all right. That's what we've invited you for. So thank you so much. But again, absolutely great clarity of thought from you about all the things that you've said. I think, and it will be helpful for all of the people who are listening in. I just want to shift a little bit towards how do you think? I think we've gone very serious into the HR, but the advent of the digital era and the continuous changes and the AI and the technology advancements in every single scope of what we do. Do you think HR is going to start transforming even further as we move along in the
No.
digital age?
No. HR is. You mean is HR going to stop transforming? No. In fact, HR is one of the first areas that will be transformed. Okay. Do you know what my 2025 goal is? The CEO has given me a goal for 2025 that I need to hit. 75% of all work, HR, by its nature, is bureaucratic. सीवियां मैनेज करनी है, एम्प्लॉय की फाइल बनानी है, उसका पेरोल निकालना है, उसकी लीव्स अटेंडेंस, right? What is that? That's bureaucracy. Operational. By quantum of work, by quantum of man hours spent doing HR. Yes?
Yeah.
My CEO has turned around and told me that by 2025, 75% of all work done in HR has to be knowledge work, not operations. That means my team on average is only spending 2 hours a day doing all of this. The other hours of the day, they're going to be spending on actual knowledge work, on really adding value, sitting in departments, sitting across the table from heads of departments and employees and leadership, and adding value. That's the vision that EFU Life has for HR for 2025. How do you achieve that? जब आपके HR के बंदे का यार उसके 6 इंटरव्यूज लाइंड अप हैं, उसके बाद उसने सीवीज मैनेज करनी है, ऑफर्स निकालने हैं, एम्प्लॉय की फाइल बनानी है, पर वो कब करेगा? I turn around and say this to my team. It's just like, yeah, nice one, Jalal. Who has the time? So what do? You digitize. Right now, EFU Life's HR department, we embarked on a process of digitalization year before last. We are streamlining just about every element of our HR functions, and we're not alone. There are multiple HR departments across the company, across the spectrum of enterprises in Pakistan that are digitizing, and you're seeing that. And we're one of the earliest adopters of AI because our HR systems, especially our talent acquisition functions, are now AI driven.
Right.
So yes, various aspects and elements of HR are digitizing, whether it's your payroll, your HR systems, etc. And as far as AI adoption is concerned, yeah, again, once again, everyone on my team is now on ChatGPT. My team sends me something to review, and I'm just like, yaar, edit to kar lete hai. Why are you copy pasting from ChatGPT? Kuch to dalo isme.
I think that's the training that we need to focus on, how to maximize the tools that we have, because we go into that comfort zone. Acha, theek hai, ye huwa mil raha hai, let's not do anything about it, like you said. That going out of the way to make sure that whatever you have can actually be done better. So slight tweaking and
absolutely. My team, like like every other team and every other department in the company, we all have our Teams chats and we have our WhatsApp chats. Teams chats are for work. WhatsApp chats, even if the boss is not on the WhatsApp chat, it's just for chatting. But my team members are constantly sending me these curated lists of, hey, Jalal, look at all of these websites that are AI run, and we can do all these things with it. So we're not just limited to ChatGPT. I mean, the entire world of, I mean, like everybody and their mother with an idea is now opening up an AI-enabled website online. And there are a bunch of free tools that you can use. Get onto LinkedIn, scroll down your feed long enough, somebody will be making a post about AI tools that you can use. The toolkit of HR has changed. I think now and this is a conversation we now have inside the department. Yeah, what's the best AI prompt that we can write to get the best result from this?
Yeah. There are trainings based on that. There are people who are giving the trainings now. That's become another field. Twitter has become that platform for educating people. How do you use ChatGPT?
We
and how
are now
write the prompts.
we're on LinkedIn, we're on Indeed, we're on Glassdoor, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, and now my team's looking very hard at TickTock. Do you know that a lot of recruitment in Pakistan is currently done on TickTock? And we're just like, you don't say. How interesting. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah, it's coming up as one of the leading platforms. I'm from the education sector, so I'm in higher education, and I'm a management trainer as well. So we are looking at TickTock as an educational platform, and
it was intended to be an educational platform.
Yeah.
That's how the Chinese looked at it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what they're doing now.
Content. That's what TikTok was, and now it is what TikTok is right now. So coming back.
Amazing stats that you've given me, and I look forward to it's just a couple of years down the lane. I'm sure you'll be doing brilliantly well in 2025, and that's a very, very significant target. If you can shift the operational things and digitize them, and there is so much room left for things that are actually going to be more impactful for the organization and even for every individual within the organization. So if you the knowledge work that you spoke about, I think that's I will be looking forward to that with the EFU. So hopefully we'll have you back again by the time you reach your target.
I'll let you know how that turned out. It's ambitious. Absolutely. It's ambitious. But I think
everything worth doing is that everything that's worth doing is always ambitious. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we had to. Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just saying that we had to sit down. We had to pick we had to pick a good technology partner to help us on our journey. I think one person said IT doesn't stand for information technology; it stands for incoming trauma, because nothing works as it does in the sales presentation that they give you. But no, ultimately, really worthwhile. We're very happy with the technology partner we've taken. Our employees are happy. The company is happy. We're smarter. We're faster. We're more agile than we were 2 years ago. And we will be more so even now. My current crusade, at least for 2023, is I don't want to see a single scrap of paper in my talent acquisition team. If you so much as print a CV, I will make you plant a tree. Because, oh my God.
Right. Okay.
So, but then how do you...
resonating with all the things that you're saying on a personal level, at least I'm relating to all of these things, because I'm just today, my team was all about, we had a brainstorming session this morning and say, how many of us have actually gone digital now? So there was, I think, about out of 15 people, there were just 2 people who didn't actually say that we've completely digital. So that's a good thing. So 13 out of 15 people in one of my departments said, we're completely digital. We've got no paper files at all. So
but EFU Life's had a long history of embracing technology, and I think that's one of the most admirable things about us. We were one of the first insurance companies to go completely paperless in our operations. Our operations completely paperless, and we're technology driven, we're app driven. Yeah. So honestly speaking, I'm not again, I'm not at the forefront here. HR is playing catch up with the rest of the company, actually, because EFU Life went paperless a long time ago.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, a little bit of a discussion away from work as well. So, what's your outside of work activities? What's your go-to de-stress outside of work, besides HR, besides all the digitization and all the transformations that are happening within the company, and
family,
all the
family.
Okay.
And you've actually, Sohail Saab, who set up this conversation between us, caught me on my vacation, which is why I'm in my bedroom right now. So I'm currently relaxing. But
Oh,
I
okay. So
recently.
sorry about that. We're
No, no,
talking
no. I'm
conversation.
happy to
So
do it. I'm happy to do it. I recently got into. I mean, I like to read, so I read a lot. Um, I I started off by I I'm a comic book fan, especially a DC comic book fan. So yeah, not
wonderful.
Marvel. I'm a DC guy, and
Oh,
yeah, Batman, Superman.
okay.
So I
Okay.
started collect like as a child. I always wanted to own those figures, but never could. And then all of a sudden, I grew up, and I was like, wait a minute. 6-year-old Jalal would be ashamed of 40-year-old Jalal, because 40-year-old Jalal can buy those toys, and the 6-year-old me would absolutely kick me. Because when you're a kid, you really want them, and you promise yourself that when I grow up and there's no parents to say no to me, I'm going to do these things. And then you grow up and you don't do these things. You don't do them. And I just suddenly realized, holy shit, I'm not doing these things. So, but I really wanted to. So I started
Yeah,
collecting.
and I
So I
can.
started collecting those figures, and then it blossomed. So I got into what is known as the hobby space. So I became a hobbyist. I now hand build custom models and kits, specifically Bandai
Oh,
Gundam kits. So I started building these really beginner kits, and I then evolved into, so I'm now building master grade kits. And I was recently abroad, so I bought more very complicated kits, and I brought them back, and they're my little
absolutely
projects. And I have
amazing.
a bunch of them,
Okay.
and
Do we have
now
any to hand?
I'm sorry.
Do we have any to hand right now?
Oh no. No, not to hand right now. Not in this
Okay.
space. At any
But
rate,
that's
if
something
you
that
come to my
absolutely
office, you will see them. They're in my office. I display them at work. So yeah, I got into the hobby space, and I started kit building, and then from there I evolved. And so now I build the kit, and then I hand paint it. So that's the latest thing. I've started painting, and of course I have a PlayStation 5, and but family first. You see, here's what I like most
Yeah.
about the hobby thing is, you put on a podcast you like, or a YouTube video you want to listen to. You sit down at your desk and you do one thing. That's it's the most zen thing I can think of, because you see, during our work days, I don't hold one thought in my head, or I'm not doing one thing. I'm doing multiple things simultaneously, and that's how we work these days. So over the weekend,
Yeah.
if you can sit down for at least an hour or a couple of hours, work with your hands to build
Yeah.
something that you yourself did, and do only that.
Yeah.
It's
Focus.
meditative, it's zen, it
Yeah.
relaxes your mind, and I enjoy the process. So yeah, I've recently started hobbying, and I'd have started reading again. Like for almost 8-9 years, I hadn't read a book. I would read for work, but I wouldn't read for pleasure. And now I started reading again, and yeah, that's I'm
Okay.
enjoying that thoroughly also.
All right, that's fantastic to hear, and I would be very curious to see your work. It's really interesting, and I
Come to my
completely
office, I'll
agree
show
with
you.
what you said.
They're displayed in my office. I'm
Uh,
currently almost completing another kit right now, so it's all in various pieces. I haven't assembled it yet, but I've still got a lot more work to do. But that was my project. Well, of course, the wife and I, we took the family and we went out abroad for a holiday. But I still have a week left on my vacation, so
Okay, so
that's
that's where
the
you're
project.
spending your time. Okay,
Yeah.
and I think we'll have a separate talk on that about your hobby. So we'll have a session on your hobby the next time around. And I completely agree with you. It's actually kind of liberating if you're sitting down and focusing on something that has nothing to do with what you're supposed to achieve, what you're supposed to do. It's still, I think, fulfilling. And I think a lot of people kind of look towards these things during the pandemic, and that's where they found that focus on one specific thing. So within our family, my children and I, we kind of got obsessed with jigsaw puzzles because there's no way to go out, no
Oh,
shopping places. So yeah, massive ones, and I can completely relate to that feeling of building up.
3,000, 5,000 pieces? Or
Yeah,
or about it?
massive ones, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, one of my children was smart enough to say, "Oh, how do we actually put them up?" So she figured out a way to put them on canvases and then put them on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah. A lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. I recommend acrylic sheets, though. Don't put it behind glass. Put it behind acrylic.
yeah. So she's actually done it on the canvases. So it's liberating because during the work day, we have so many things happening, so many people to look after as well, so many things to address. And just having that time to kind of, just as you said, have a Zen time to yourself is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it refreshes you. So, okay, right. Now, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful session. We've had an interesting talk about, I think, everything from HR and all the way up to the fantastic hobby that you have as well. And I'm sure a lot of words will be very useful and very inspiring for all of our viewers. You talked about how you need to look at discovering and experimenting on your journey as well for the younger lot, and how employers actually need to look at the cultural dynamics that should be coming from the right place. There's a phrase that we use, I think it's become very common. So the right thoughts and right minds, the alignment between the employer and the employee needs. So very valuable words. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And I wish you all the best for all of your targets for the coming up years. And I hope to see you again.
No, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope our viewers have as well. Sumbal, it's been an honor and a pleasure to meet you, and thank you once again for this opportunity, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Have a great rest of the vacation. Enjoy your holiday, and okay, best of luck. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Khuda Hafiz.